Go, wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging. Whosoever partaketh thereof is unwise. And there's multiple scriptures in there too. And there's some scriptures that seemingly support alcohol, but if you look at those a little closer, it says, give strong drink unto him that perish. So that's really the only time that we're to offer strong drink, or for those with a heavy heart. So it seems to be like in the past that alcohol was used as medicine. God does not like suffering at all. And if alcohol is the only thing that they had back then to relieve suffering, then give it, okay? Give that alcohol to somebody that can relieve their suffering. Now we have things called morphine, and we have sodium pentothal. We have a lot of great drugs out there that can take the place of alcohol much more effectively without the same consequences. God doesn't like suffering, and he's given us means to reduce it. So and that's my feelings on it. But any other use of those drugs becomes a disaster, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
If, the street version of morphine, heroin, has become a terrible scourge on our streets. All drugs, really. Those drugs under the medical field have a whole different meaning. It's like sex in a marriage. Inside the context of a marriage, it's holy, it's undefiled. Outside of a marriage, it's entirely different now. It's filthy, it's dirty. Same thing. Everything's got to live inside of its own context.
Remember that woman in Santa Margarita? She was 96 years old. She had all those red poppies, and they came and they pulled them out. I'm talking about the Drug Task Center, whatever, task force.
The DEA.
The DEA.
That poor old lady. I mean, they were beautiful opium poppies, but who in the world is farming opium poppies in California for? No, I mean, they're beautiful poppies. But yeah, they took them away from her. Trish says, by the way, I'm in recovery. If you need someone to talk to your son, let me know. Well, God is speaking to our son.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking to him. I mean, look, it's a product of some people make mistakes and they don't learn by them. My son is reaching out to God right now, and he's open to it. Lisa mentioned earlier, we raised our kids in the church, and then they know better. They literally know better. So when they're in trouble, they know who to go to, and they cry out to the Lord. And it's not a bad place to be in mourning. And thank you, Trish, for that, because
Yes.
That's our duty, isn't it, to reach out and to counsel one another
Exactly.
during those times when someone else in recovery can help an alcoholic or someone who's addicted to drugs a lot more effectively than someone who doesn't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we all have our strengths, and praise the Lord for your clean, for you being clean and free of drugs or alcohol.
The hardest thing to overcome.
You battled that too, didn't you, Lisa?
Well, my dad would put wine in our bottles. We grew up with it. And I used to run, and you can hear the can rattling on my teeth as I'm like 4 or 5, just drinking the last little bit out of his beer, running to go get another beer for him. Yeah, I mean, I think I was prone to be an alcoholic.
Yeah, it's a genetic predisposal. To say that we're born into sin is literally true. I mean, look, these people that say they're born into homosexuality, I believe that. I believe they're literally born into that proclivity to sin, right? That's not to say that they were born a woman. I mean, but we're born with some circuitry that's been fried. We're not born whole. And so when we get to the age of accountability, and especially if we let these things cultivate in our mind, we become deranged. And almost all of us have lived a deranged life. I mean, there's very few people that haven't. I mean, there are those rare exceptions, those people that you see that seem to just live a really great life from their childhood, and they never really stray. And I really tip my hat to people like that. Now, that wasn't our experience at all. Yeah, let me read this comment here. Are prescription medications prescribed viewed as drugs?
Yes, you can get a DUI. That's what happened.
No. That's not, well, yes, that's true, but that's not what she's asking here.
Oh.
AA says if it's abused. Watchman says silence, that's a hard one I take. No, it's not hard. If they're prescribed, God has given us doctors to ease our pains, to ease our sufferings, right?
Yes.
And I just kind of addressed that. Prescribed drugs can sometimes, if they're abused, look, that's something for the individual to determine in their own hearts and to speak with God about it, because and a lot of doctors will prescribe pain meds that are damaging to people. We knew somebody, a dear friend of ours.
I was going to say, I had a head-on collision. I barely lived through it, but I was an alcoholic. like Levi, riding around on a motorcycle. Anyhow, I get into this accident, and then I'm in the hospital, and then they release me, and they give me codeine, right? And then I'm thinking I'm taking this codeine, but what happened, and I just learned this. A couple weeks ago from my sister. Apparently, how I saw it was I was on the floor on a mattress because I couldn't get out of bed because it was my knee, I was right there and I had my little urine pot or whatever. But I would look for my pills and they'd be gone. And then my dad says, I threw them out the window, And I thought, why did he do that? That's horrible. I'm hurting. But my sister told me it was because my mom was taking my medication. And she was prone to addiction. And I never saw her like that, only with food addiction, but never no pill addiction. And obviously my dad had seen it and he tossed my medicine. That makes a lot of sense. And the pain and suffering that I suffered was worth it. I mean, that she didn't get addicted to them. And because we know some people that get addicted to it, they end up getting a divorce and separating, get really ugly.
Well, she said, okay, this is interesting. This conversation is getting good now. So she says, but are not all drugs still drugs? Okay, question mark. And how is man-made drugs okay, but drugs like weed are not? Now, let me kind of try to explain that a little bit. Now, we're told in the Bible that all nations would be deceived by her sorcery, speaking of the beast power, the beast, the woman riding the beast. If you look up that word sorcery, the word in the Greek is pharmakia, okay? Do a little search. It will lead you to the word pharmakia. And pharmakia is literally something that the sorcerers would administer drugs or potions or something along those lines for mind-altering hallucinations and whatever to aid in whatever witchcraft that they were practicing. Now there's the verses in the Bible that says, a little wine for thy stomach's sake, give wine unto those who are of a heavy heart and give strong drink unto those who perish. We have those verses there. Now, seemingly the alcohol is to relieve the pain, right? Is to relieve the suffering. So drugs that are designed, now it's always best under a doctor, right? We self-prescribe and self-medicate all the time, right? We do it with all kinds of things. Self-medication is not the best way to go because we don't know where to cut the line. We don't know where to draw the line, right?
And your tolerances go up too.
Well, and we're self-deceived.
Yeah.
We'll convince ourselves that we have a pain that we need to treat with the drug.
Yes.
Right? And therein lies the problem because the drug is creating the pain that we're trying to treat with the drug. And it's this nasty cycle of addiction that we get caught up in. And addiction is our enemy, okay? There is about relieving pain that God is very much about. On the battlefield, when the soldier is in great pain, give him that shot of morphine. When the old man is dying, give him the pain relief that he needs in his final moments of life. There's nothing to gain in letting that individual suffer.
Right.
All up until the very last. There's nothing to gain when someone's under surgery to let them experience extreme discomfort of the knife. Give them the drugs. When they're in recovery, give them the drugs. And this is the key word, recovery, okay? You've already heard Trish say that she's in recovery. Like you yourself, Lisa, you're in recovery as well. You haven't drank for
I'll be
quite a few years.
in recovery the rest of my life because it's not, I don't want to drink anymore, but that was my escape. Instead of arguing or instead of anything, I would just, or all my problems, you can hide. And if you wanted to be happy and have a birthday party or a festival party or a holiday party, it was always use that as well. But I never got into drugs and I never got into the marijuana, thank goodness. I'm a very addictive personality.
Yeah, but I wanted to say real quick, now recovery is the key word here, okay? Recovery, right? Now Trish and my wife and many other people out there, a great deal of people are recovering from alcohol or some kind of substance abuse. But now when we're talking about drugs, they should be used for recovery, okay? Now once you're, and here's something that's that the Christian has to be very aware of is drugs can be very dangerous, right? Like I mentioned before, sex in its context is good, right? Sex outside of that context is bad, right? We have everything in balance, right? Under a marriage contract, sex is holy and undefiled. Outside the contract, it's a sin. And we deal with drugs the same way. Inside the contract of relieving suffering and pain, then it's good. And I know there's mental disabilities too people suffer from, and there's drugs that treat that as well. Now a Christian needs to be wise, and they need to consider, look, there's always a better way. If I get my leg chopped off, I want some drugs.
Yeah.
But once my leg is healed, I need to get off those drugs. Now, my body might tell me I still want those drugs.
Yeah.
Because those drugs made me feel good.
Yeah.
But now the drugs have become a problem. Drug abuse can bring pain. Alcohol abuse can bring pain. That's sin. Anytime pain involves or hurt or damaging something or damaging ourselves, that's sin. If those drugs are helping, that's the opposite. Okay, so that's the difference. My father was an alcoholic. My uncle was a terrible alcoholic and a drug abuser. Well, so was my father. I mean, my uncle actually died of methamphetamine and Vicodin. Not Vicodin, but it was Valium. Valium.
Yeah, volume.
Methamphetamines, alcohol, and possibly even heroin. But there was a lot of things that he did that we didn't really know about. Many, many family members, a lot of tears, a lot of sorrow, a lot of pain and anguish that have been suffered through the years.
You know, me and my sister, we haven't really talked for almost 30 years. It's been a long time. And when we did, we didn't care for one another. And I think it was because we had to grow up so fast. I was so sickly and small, and my dad would drive by us. We had to come down 13 miles and wait at the nearest house, and he would drive by and purposely, forget, pass us up. But we were like little dogs. We knew what his vehicle sounded like, and my sister was strong, and I was just really small, like I said. And I really had a lot of resentment for being, well, it's not abuse, but it's neglect. And I struggled with that, and I made sure none of our kids were out there waiting for me. I mean, I was there. I was there 10, 15 minutes early to pick them up. I turned something that was tragic in my life into something good. My sister cannot get over that. And I'm just telling her, yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can get over it. You know, we'll grow together on this. But as she's 4 years older. She was older. As soon as I got to 11 or 12, I started growing, and I could walk forever and ever. And I just felt like I was indestructible. And I could run home 13 miles. he leaves me, I'll just run home. You know, I just felt like nothing bothered me after that. I was on my own. I had to be independent. And I think a lot of people don't get me is because they've never had to deal with this. They never had to deal with a lot of stuff that me and my sister had to. The good thing is I never had to struggle with any kind of sexual abuse or anything like that. I'm very thankful. But there was a lot of other stuff that was in our house. And I think every household, you never grow up perfect. I mean, we knew some of our friends that were had like $10,000 horses, and now we look at them and they talk like a baby, and they're not even normal. So I'm kind of glad I was out in the world and I struggled a little bit, you know. It's kind of like the little turtles I was telling my sister. The little turtles, and they come out of the sand and they have to hit that water, you know. And they have to hurry up because there's things plucking them off, you know. Got to get out there. You got to survive, you know. And you got to survive what's on the shore. You got to survive what's in the water right there at the shoreline. And once we survived it, we're going to be okay. And I just try to tell her stuff like that. But
Well,
yeah.
it's interesting. You know, God can use our pain and turn it around and make it a strength. Whereas some people, I posted a short little video clip on my Facebook, Prophecy Montana,
Hmm.
of forgiveness, and it was talked about. It's an old video. I think it's black and white, and they were talking about how we need to forgive, and first we have to forgive our parents. And that caught me off guard a little bit, right? Those who don't forgive their parents actually can fall into mental illness. That's one of the major causes of mental illness is not forgiving your parents. Now, all parents have issues, right? Because we're human. We're all born with this broken brain, and like as parents, we could have done things better, right? Ourselves.
Hmm.
I mean, we look back and it's kind of cringy some of the things and that we would
Just in
do.
the beginning.
Yeah, well, I mean, we learned as we're going along. I mean, we always tried to do the best we could. You make a lot of mistakes along the way.
You know, Trish, you want to know how idiotic I am? So I took my kids out. It all started with that book and Halloween and Christmas and all that. I was telling you guys earlier. And I went and I recruited some people that had a lot of money in our church. And they helped me get my kids out of the system. That's what it's called, the school system. I didn't realize I would have them full time. It's so dumb, huh? I was thinking, oh no, I have them full time now. I can't go to work. I'm just here with them now. What did I do? And I can't drink. I can't drink my 2 or 3, 4 beers or whatever because they're here and they're looking at me. And anyways, I had to quit drinking. And it was probably more than 4 or 5 beers, but I had to quit drinking altogether because now the state is looking at you and they're looking at the books from your kids with the homeschooling. So I actually put myself in recovery. And it was some of the hardest thing. I remember just with a headache and just sitting on the floor saying, "Yeah, mommy, I'll be there. I'll be there. Just just go outside." I was really going through a lot of anguish, but I ended up getting through it because of the love I had for my kids. But
Love conquers all.
yeah, it
Love
was
conquers all.
hard.
And you know, you did have an incredible love for these kids, and that's one of the things that just made me fall so much in love with you because you were so nurturing and so good to those children.
Spank. I never spanked Garrett. Maybe I should have, and he wouldn't have gone astray.
You know, God is a perfect parent, and Lucifer got astray. I mean, there's just this. Well, it's called freedom of choice. It's
Yeah.
called God gives us freedom of choice. He allows us to be able to make our own minds up, and He doesn't control us. And so, rebellion is a real problem in this world, as we know, and that's how Lucifer fell from heaven, was with rebellion.
Yeah.
And because of rebellion, of mankind and the whole human race, there are all these problems that we deal with. The problems that you grew up with, the problems that I grew up with, the
Hmm.
problems that our kids say they grew up with, is a fault of ours. There's all these things, and it just seems to be a theme that just continues over and over again. It's this snowball effect. And now we're living in the last days, and things have gotten so bad that you see evil everywhere you turn.
And you could ask people, when do you think God's coming? Look at all these things that are happening. And total atheists in the Conoco, everyone will look at you and they'll say, soon, he better come soon. And you're thinking, I spurred these people into saying something. And it's kind of funny, but everyone knows. I have a hard time thinking about that too. Like, am I ready? I've been such a rotten human, and I struggle with my mind all the time, and am I ready? Can I go? Am I not praying about everything and getting forgiven? You can't help but think that you're
Well,
undone.
here's
Still.
the thing: we are all undone. None of us are ready. None of us are ready. Let's be like we were talking about this earlier today. Let's be like the woman who had the issue of blood. She said, "If I could but touch the hem of His garment, I would be made whole." Jesus in no wise will cast out nobody. There's a probation period, and we're still in that probationary period. And we can take a hold of the hem of His garment by faith, and we'll be healed. And this is the theme of what Jesus has offered the whole human race. is we just need to take a hold of him. It's just that simple. I mean, there's more to it, but that's the start. That's the start. We just take a hold of Jesus, and then Jesus will take a hold of our hand, and he'll lead us in the directions that we must go. And he's going to take us through some hard stuff, and we're going to be walking some tough paths, and it won't be easy.
You know, when I the only promise that I had, that I chanted in my mind when I quit drinking is, God will never give you more than you can handle. I just kept saying that because I was sweating. I couldn't sleep. I had the chills. I was sick. And I was thinking it could be worse. I mean, it could be worse. You weren't there to preach to me, and I had to hold on to some of these promises.
Well, I was a beer can preacher at that time myself.
Yeah.
I could preach a pretty good sermon with my beer can in one hand, a Bible in the other. And I'll tell you,
I don't think you ever converted anybody.
no, that's not a very effective way to teach. You know, I think all of our friends, they would humor me and they would listen a little bit.
They would laugh at him.
Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah.
I don't know. Our house was better than a bar. I think everyone driving away from our house was getting DUIs.
It was worse than a bar.
It was.
Even the hardcore alcoholics said they've never partied so hard in all their life.
It was terrible.
I mean, there's nothing to brag about. I mean, I'm so glad that we've left that all behind.
We had to leave those friends behind too.
Oh, remember Mark and Mary?
Mm-hmm. Mary ran over Mark.
Mary ran over Mark. But then we quit drinking, and then we were avoiding Mary and Mark. We'd see him here and there, and we would duck and we would dodge him, right? You know, act like we didn't see him, go the other direction, because we didn't want that influence around us. One time we were walking through Walmart, and boom, we just both turned the aisle. We just ran into each other. There was no avoiding it, right? And we were talking and stuff, and before you know it, we found out they'd quit drinking. They were avoiding us too.
Yeah,
that was hilarious. We're like,
funny.
good on you guys, man. Yeah, we were nasty influences.
Horrible.
Silence is compliance. She says, I once heard alcohol is called spirits for a reason. It allows evil spirits in that never come without it. That was enough for me to stop drinking long ago. Amen.
You know, when I want to say Garrett it was the whole, we were partying, and then our kids, I think they can all remember, I could tell you that. And they said they saw Peter Pan, and they still say it to this very day. I mean, Clancy's got to be 32 now.
The shadow of Peter Pan was
The
dancing
shadow
about.
Of Peter Pan. I had them all bathed, had them in my room, had the big TV and cartoons on for them, and would periodically check on them and stuff, and that's what they were saying. And yeah, that's serious.
It's serious. We were bringing spirits into the house. We didn't even realize it. And that was one of our big mistakes as parents, you know, raising our kids. And
Yeah.
and a lot of parents.
I stopped after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I mean, so many people make those mistakes, and you know, not everybody's into alcohol. Some people are into some other things that bring
Yeah.
spirits into the house. You know, I brought up pornography earlier in the thing, and how a lot of men struggle with that, and and that brings spirits into the house. What we do affects the whole rest of our family. It can be a real detrimental and harmful thing. And of course, the devil hates family, and of course, he hates good guidance for children. So he's going to try and destroy the family, and he's going to try and take the father away, or the mother away. He's going to try and split up the family in any way that he can. But you know, Jesus is a restorer, and he can restore all things. So if we find ourselves that we've been the product of a divorce, or we've been the product of a bad childhood, or hardships of any kind whatsoever, God can take those things and he can completely turn them around and make them our allies and our strengths. And we can champion those as a weapon of war, if you will, to go forth to gain other souls for the kingdom of God. And praise the Lord for that, because the time is near. And I can't stress that enough. The time is near, and we need to put our nose in our Bibles, and we need to learn who Jesus is, and we need to get on our knees, and we need to pray.